Nostril versus Septum. 5 rounds to decide who will prevail. Coming up next on Piercing Battles, episode number 1. For those that are new to the channel, welcome to the Body Piercing and Tattooing channel. Hope you're enjoying the videos. Hope you find them helpful and useful. But you might not know who I am. My name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and I operate the Axiom Body Piercing studio located right here in Des Moines, Iowa, inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo. So it's a brand new series I just started. I've done some of these during the pros and cons in the first season. I think I did 1 in the second season. What I'm going to be doing is taking one subject against the other. We'll go through 5 rounds, 5 different points to see which one may work best for you. These are going to be some of the most common questions that people will ask when they're trying to decide between the two. And that's going to be anatomy, placement, healing, jewelry choices, and living with the piercing. So let's start off with round 1, anatomy. With the nostril, most people have the anatomy to get this piercing done. The anatomy of the nostril gives us a lot of options as far as placement and etc. It's not really an issue. I don't think I've ever turned anyone away for not having the anatomy to get a nostril piercing done, nor have I ever heard of anybody having that issue. With the septum, the biggest problem with the septum is that nobody's nose is perfectly straight. We're all a little deviated one way or another. We're all deviants of some sort, especially when it comes to our septum. In some cases, that septum can be deviated at very vast angles, so that can make it unpierceable. But usually most septums, I would say 99% of them can be pierced. There is always going to be a little bit of off. It's more about piercing to make them look straight than actually straight, because your nose isn't straight up and down. It's kind of curved. So it's one of those piercings a little bit more challenging anatomy-wise. So that, in the first round, I'm going to call it a tie. Nostril and septum 1-1. And let's move on to round 2, placement. Nostril has a huge variety of different options as far as placement. You have a lot of canvas to work with, so to speak. You can do them high, you can do them low, you can do them forward, you can do them back, you can do a lot of different things, and you can do multiple nostril piercings. You can pierce the front if you want to do manus piercings. There's all kinds of options of different nostril piercings. Septum, it is limited. You want to hit that sweet spot, and you want to do it so it looks straight and it's as far away from the lower upper lip as possible so that it hangs free. So you're very limited on placement. You can do multiples. I've done them in the past. It does get a little crowded, but it is possible to do kind of a row of them. But for the most part, it's pretty darn limited to kind of one place. So round 2 goes to nostril. So that makes it 2-1. Nostril's winning, taking a slight lead. And that moves us on to round 3, healing. Nostril piercings. They're difficult to isolate. They can be a hard piercing to keep away from bedding, clothing, other people, some cases, hair, etc. They're just kind of out there sticking out on your face, so they bump into things. The jewelry will need to be downsized during the healing process, because usually we pierce with something too big to allow for the swelling, but leaving that longer one in there can cause agitation and lead to problems further down. You also want to keep makeup away from the area and facial cleansers and etc. You need to isolate it also away from anything that may agitate it. Nostrils, I would say, between the two, are much more prone to bumps and other issues during healing. The septum, it is easy to isolate. It basically is inside your nose. It's in a protected area. The only thing with these is maybe a little bit more movement because of the circular jewelry, but for the most part, it's a lot easier to isolate. And it's less work. There's less dealing with stuff. There's less keeping things away from it. And the major bonus is it's the only piercing on your face that you can hide during the healing process. If it's done with the proper jewelry, or a jewelry that like is horseshoe shaped, like a circular barbell, it can be flipped up during the healing process, and nobody needs to know that you have it. As we move into round number 4, jewelry options or choices, depending on who you talk to. Nostril 2, Septum 2. With nostril piercings, there is a huge variety of different options for jewelry, whether it be stud jewelry, rings. Both of those are going to give you a great deal of different options you can put in that piercing. And I mean, there are literally 20, 30, 40, maybe 100,000 different options you can put in there for stud jewelry. Rings, probably a couple thousand different options as far as rings. So you have a lot of variety to choose from. Septums also have a large variety. Usually circular jewelry, that's the only limitation between the two. You can, and material-wise, you can do bone, you can do glass. There's specialty pieces made just for septums. Lots of different ends for circular barbells. There's lots of different options as far as the hinged rings or the seamless rings. Lots of gem settings and fancy designs. It is endless. So I'm calling this one a tie, bringing the total up to Nostril 3, Septum 3, going into the last round, living with the piercing, round number 5. Let's start with the nostril. Nostrils, living with the piercing, they're highly visible. They're easy to catch on things even after they've healed. They do require an additional kind of continuation of isolating the piercing, especially with stud jewelry, and even ring jewelry or rings for that matter. They can close very, very rapidly. It's not uncommon to have it for a couple of years, take it out for a day or two for one reason or another, and have problems getting it back in. The advantage of them living with them would be that they are much more socially acceptable than other piercings. They're so commonplace now that most people don't find them offensive in any way, shape, or form, and your chances of employment and et cetera are greatly better than they once were when it came to nostril piercings. However, there's always going to be that person. Last, there's lots of jewelry options. You can really change the look of a nostril piercing by simply changing from a ring to a stud or from a gem setting to a character setting. It's very easy to keep that piercing looking fresh. I had a client in the other day that was talking about how for months nobody noticed that they had their nostril pierced, and they changed out to a different piece of jewelry, and then suddenly everybody noticed it. With the septum, it has the big bonus factor of with the proper jewelry, it can be hidden. So it's not going to affect you in any way, shape, or form socially or otherwise. You can use it. You can have that piercing for a long period of time, and nobody needs to know you have it except a few close friends or what have you. Also, it can be the forever piercing. Septums are one of the few piercings that I've encountered over the years that stay open much, much longer than other facial piercings. It's not uncommon to come across somebody that comes in to get their septum redone, and I go, hey, let's just to be on the safe side, let's run a guide pin through there. And the piercing is still open, even though they haven't had anything in it for a year or so. So it is one of those piercings that can be the forever piercing. It also has become much more socially acceptable than it once was. I'm seeing it more commonly in people that work in the service industry. It's not got that stigma it once had. So it's pretty socially acceptable and isn't going to affect job or your social life. The other thing is there's lots of jewelry options, which we already talked about. So that round number 5, goes to septums, making it Nostril 3, Septum 4. Of course, this doesn't really mean anything, but think about it. If you're trying to choose between these two piercings, the biggest thing you want to think about is how it's going to look on you, whether or not it fits your style, whether or not there's jewelry available to fit your style, and are you willing to take the extra steps, like with the nostril piercing, where it's going to take a little bit more care than the septum piercing? And the other thing is, are you in a situation in life where you do not have to hide that you have that piercing? Well, that's it. Do you have either of these piercings? Do you have something to add or something to suggest? Please do so in the comments. If you feel like I didn't cover something, please leave a comment with a question, and I'll try to answer it. Till next time, here's hoping all your piercings heal with ease and without a single issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I would love to see your piercing needs in the future. Have a good day, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you in that next video.